Duke, you suck.
You shut your mouth!
Welcome to the Duke You Suck podcast. And now, Duke Durango.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Duke You Suck podcast. It is my honor and pleasure to have my good friend and Stampede alumni. The nickname I gave him, and I know he hated, the Superfly, Dan Meyers. Dan, how the hell are you?
Doing pretty good, Jordy. Thanks for having me. And
Dan, thank you so much.
I didn't hate that nickname. I had some worse wrestling names than that for sure.
Fair enough. But man, thanks for coming on. It's really, it was really good to kind of touch base with you and have you sort of be willing, because not everybody wants to sit in front of a camera and bullshit with me at 11 o'clock on a Sunday morning.
Oh no, it's my pleasure. Dusty Adonis has been asking me forever when I'm going to be on your show. So
Dusty, everybody's manager.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's the thing about Dusty, man, is he's one guy that from the day I met him to, I think I've known Dusty now for probably, 6 or 7 years, I guess, maybe 8. Oh God, no, way more than that. Sorry, I forgot he was in Stampede. So yeah, I've probably known Dusty now like 15 years, actually.
Yeah.
And he's never changed. You know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong, we've all matured. And I don't want to, but he's still the same goofy guy. You know what I mean? Wife and kid, he's, for all accounts, by everything I see and hear, he seems to be a really great dad. But man, he's just such a sweetheart of a guy.
He is, yeah.
But let's trash talk him for a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna shit talk him right now. So he was in town and didn't come see you. What's up with that?
I don't know. He came to do a wrestling match, and he thought that it was more important to see David and Thomas Bush than come and hang out with some of the old Stampede boys.
And I love David and Thomas. I don't want to come across the wrong way, but come on, Dusty, get your priorities sorted out. All right, you gotta come see the boys.
Sort yourself out.
Yeah, exactly. He did ask me to come down to the show, but I had plans, so I couldn't make it. Unfortunately, I'm not somebody you can talk to me like the week before and say, hey, come down to the show Friday. Like my wife has me booked a month out. Yeah, it's nice to be busy, but sometimes it does leave room for spontaneity.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go back here. I'm going to wind you all the way back. I first met you, I think you were probably 15 years old. I think I'd been away from the dungeon and came back, and you were there.
Yeah.
And yeah, so you were just this young kid. You were already taller than me, I think, at 15, you asshole. Yeah, you were kind of this young, lanky kid. You still got the rosy red cheeks. And I come rolling in the dungeon. I'm like, wow, who's this kid? And I literally, Dan, I'm not going to lie to you. I was like, I don't know if this young fella is going to make it. And, lo and behold, you made it and did really well for yourself. So, congratulations on everything you were able to accomplish.
Thank you. Yeah. So I think like in 2002 maybe is when I came to the dungeon. I had done a little bit before that previously with Mat Rats first.
Okay, so that's you started actually in Mat Rats.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want me to just kind of start at the beginning.
Yeah, man, take it right back. How did you, what made you want to break in? Let's even start there.
It was actually watching you guys on Stampede TV.
Oh, okay. When we had on A channel there.
Yeah, on A channel. So I got into wrestling, I guess, a little bit later than most people. Like I got in, like it was around 98, like when Steve Austin was at his hottest.
Okay. Hey, there's a lot of people that got into wrestling at that time.
Yeah. So I was about 12 years old, I think, then, or 11, 12 years old.
Right.
And I think it was Stampede started in 99, right? On A channel stuff?
Yeah. I think on A channel, our first, I think you're in the ballpark. Like I'm trying to think our first TV taping might've been September 98. It was right in around there though.
Yeah. So anyways, it was in like the same kind of time frame there. And then seeing, guys like TJ and Ted and Harry on TV, I was like, whoa, I'm like, these guys are just like kids. Right. And where my mom and dad's house was, it's not very far from the Hart House. And so when we would take the bus to school or whatever, it would go down into Patterson and I'm like, it's right there. So like,
it's like 5 minutes from your door.
Yeah, like, so in the summertime when it was nice, we'd ride our bikes down there, and I'm sure you were probably there maybe, but like, when they'd set the ring up in the yard, so we'd go there on like Saturday afternoons and like just watch the practice from the road.
I'll be honest with you, wrestling in the yard has ruined me for wrestling in gyms and buildings. There's no better feeling than being able to work out outside.
Yeah. So I did that, and then again, just because of proximity by fluke. So it still would have been like a couple years from then, but like so when I started watching like 98 or whatever, and it got, through the hottest, like into 2000, and then kind of 2001 started to kind of like, teeter off a bit.
Yeah.
I just never lost interest. Right. Whereas a bunch of my friends were same thing, really into it in like 98, 99. And then, kind of 2000, 2001, starting to lose it by 2002,
Yeah. It's sort of waning off.
Yeah. But I just never like lost interest. And then I always wanted to go to Ted's wrestling camp there at BJ's.
Right.
And I, for whatever reason, like I never went. But I, at that time I was still like playing hockey and stuff and whatever, we're doing other things.
And you would have still been young, man. What have you been, about 12 or 13, if that?
Yeah, I think so, like, probably like 12 or 13. But eventually it was in the summer of 2001, at the 7-Eleven, I ran into Ted. Met Ted for the first time.
Right.
Right by Stu's place there.
Yeah, you bet. Where we used to have to run to all the time.
Yeah. So I met him there, and he was, like, I was like, just wanted to meet him and stuff. And, of course, like, he's looking for new students and stuff.
Ted's always a salesman.
At this time, Matt Rats had started up, and like, it was weird because like I was following Stampede Wrestling, but somehow like I didn't know about Matt Rats. Like, they had done all their stuff with Eric Bischoff already, and like,
okay. So they run that Palace show yet?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
So I had missed all that stuff, and then but from what he said, it was still, and it was still going on. They still had that studio up there, just off of Deerfoot and 16th,
you bet,
or 8th, I think.
Yeah, Deerfoot and 8th Avenue.
Yeah. And so I was like, I want to go. Like, so we went and we checked it out, and even my younger brother came too. And so I ended up having my first match against my younger brother. I just had it was like awesome. 20-year anniversary of it at the end of September.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Congratulations, man.
Thank you. So that was, that's how I got into wrestling. And then being at Matt Rats, like, it shortly folded thereafter. Right. Like, I was on the very last show, and then
and then that was that.
Yeah. And then so I still wanted to wrestle, but I was like, I figured I was too young to go to the dungeon, or like, I didn't know what was going on.
Right.
And then there was a kid in one of my classes who went to he was in a boxing class, and he's like, oh, they have wrestling at my boxing gym. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, is like, based on what Ted had said, it's like he was the only kids wrestling school in the world.
Right.
The
entire planet.
Yeah. So I went with him one time, and that's where Rick Titan and Bad News Allen were.
I got you. Was that downtown? Am I wrong?
Yeah, just off of 11th Avenue and like 11th Street, I think.
Right.
Yeah, there was like a martial arts gym there, so they did all kinds of stuff there, and they had a boxing ring that they added some extra padding on, and Rick Titan and Bad News taught wrestling classes there for a bit. So I ended up doing 2 shows for them. I think it was one in December of 2001 and one in maybe January.
Okay, so you'd have been there training with, I want to say, Dusty, Jinder Mahal, and Raj Singh. No, none
of Big Raj was there.
Okay,
but he was the only one.
Right.
Dusty and Gamma Jr. and stuff, they started afterwards. When I think when Bad News was running out of that building that was on Sutina.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Right. So I did a couple shows there, and then they folded, or I'm not sure exactly what happened.
Right.
And then I still just kind of wanted to wrestle. At that point, I'd like, obviously had met Harry and TJ and things like that. And somehow I ended up, just like kind of hanging out with them a little bit. And then they're like, oh, like, why don't you come down to the dungeon and stuff? And then like from there, I kind of started talking to Bruce if it, like, if it's okay to join. Cause like, I mean, even though it seems like it wasn't such a big deal, it's like, there is things about, having minors like join, so there's reasons why there's waivers and why minors can't.
Well, there's a lot of shit talking going on down there, man. There's some things said that young people don't necessarily need to be here, especially when we were there.
But yeah, so then I started again, I can't remember when it was. It must have been like February or March maybe of 2002. Okay. And then I just was stuck around. And then the first match, I guess, that I had, I believe, for Stampede would have been the Stu Hart 88th birthday show.
Okay.
Yeah. In May of 2003.
And that's about right when I came back.
Just a little bit before, because I remember actually your return. It was at the Bonus Sportsplex,
right,
in the hockey rink side.
Geez, how do you remember these things? I can never remember this stuff.
I don't know. I got a weird memory for like weird Alberta wrestling.
Right.
But it was, and you came back, and like I didn't know who you were. Like,
right,
I saw you just briefly. Like I might have known that, like, oh, that's Duke Durango or Dirty Dick Reigns or whatever from TV. Right. But like, I never went to, what was the other promotion you guys did? WCEW.
Oh, WCEW. Yeah.
Yeah. So I never went to any of those ones either. So I never knew about any, like, so when I first came to Stampede, like all, like you and Pollock and Dean and a bunch of guys were like gone. Right.
Right.
And then came back. But so I remember you came back and then you beat Bruce for the belt that on your first night back.
Oh man, there were some guys pissed off about that.
Yeah. So
I think that might have been my fourth show, to be honest. I know Ross, I think he was ribbing me because I hadn't been doing much, and he put me on like a 20-minute Broadway with TJ and Chestermere one night. Yeah, I remember like, hey TJ, how's your back? Why? Because you're gonna be carrying me for fucking 20 minutes. So, but yeah, and then there was, to me, that's one of the stories that I forget about. But I remember walking in the locker room because I had no idea, man. It wasn't like something I politicked for. It was, in fact, to be honest with you, I didn't even get told to finish that match. Bruce literally came up and he said, I'll have you. It's funny because I can remember every detail of the finish now. Bruce had me in the sleeper. Divine came up on the apron, hit Bruce in the back of the head with something, and I was out. And then I fell on Bruce 1, 2, 3, and that's how I won the belt. And I remember kind of being surprised. But I could also remember walking into the back in the locker room and looking around, and like nobody was fucking happy I won that belt. Like, all right, this is how it's gonna be, eh? In fact, one guy looked right at me and goes, "Bruce is such a fucking asshole." I'm like, all right. Yeah, I told him later on when I, everything calmed down. I just kind of said, that's more of a tell on what he thinks of you than him. So there's something obviously he thinks you're missing, and that guy did not like hearing that.
No, I'm sure he didn't.
No, and I didn't say it to him like in a rude way. I wasn't trying to be rough with him. It was, there's something in your work that's missing that he thinks is missing. Because it wasn't like this, and I'm not going to name the guy because I'm certainly not going to sue him because he's a great guy. But
let's get the shovels out and bury some guys, Jordy. Let's go.
Yeah, no, you know me, man. I'm all over burying. Especially guys that I don't talk to enough to phone me and say, you're a fucking asshole for saying that. This shit just goes out there and they'll hear it and I'll never hear it back and they'll just have this burning hate for me. But yeah, no, he was somebody that a really good hand, like a really excellent, but just at that time just didn't quite have, there was a bit of showmanship he was missing. That's all I'll say. Because that was to me what I was. I never considered myself a better wrestler than anyone on the roster, really. I was a better showman than a lot of guys, though. And that was, I think, the difference at that time. Yeah.
No, you definitely had the personality to go along with the work rate.
Right. So, okay. So anyways, enough about me. Let's talk about you, Dan. What do you think of me?
I did that Stu Hart 88th birthday show.
Okay.
Because that one was being, I guess, whatever you want to call it, put on or promoted by like Harry and Diana were actually the ones mostly in charge.
Right.
And then Bruce and Ross were, helping out otherwise. I don't know all the details of it or whatever, but at that point, I think I'd, probably been going to the wrestling practices at the dungeon for, like a year or whatever. And by no means was I like, probably even ready, but
I don't know, man, if you're at the dungeon for a year, at that point, you just got to get in the ring and work it out.
Yeah. But Ted still had his wrestling camp and they wanted to do like a kind of like an exhibition to kind of like show like some kids on the show to promote
the Young Lions match.
Yeah. So we did that. And I mean, it was pretty cool because I don't think that Stu stayed all the way till the end of the show.
Right.
Because it ended up going like really long.
No.
Believe it or not.
No, I don't believe it.
So it was cool to be able to get to wrestle in front of Stu Hart and Ralph Klein, who was the premier at that time. He was there, so that was cool. And like,
Right.
I had Keith Hart come up to me at the end of the night and tell me that I was I played a good little heel and stuff. So like, I was feeling like, pretty high on myself.
Pretty good experience, man.
Yeah. And then it was kind of shortly after that it was like maybe a couple of weeks after that I started becoming like a regular on Bruce's shows.
Okay.
There was just we were at the Bonas Sportsplex, and I came, helped set up the ring, all that kind of stuff, and like I wasn't booked, so I didn't know that I was going to be a part of the show at all, so I didn't have any sort of gear or whatever, like nothing, right?
Right, rolling around in pants and a t-shirt.
Yeah, and then Bruce comes and gets me while the show is going on and says that I'm going to be Randy Meyers' younger brother or whatever, and I'm like, oh, like okay. So then it was like that's just how it started.
And that's literally that's how Dan Meyers was born. You literally got plucked out of the crowd, so to speak.
Yeah. I think I went to the concession to go order some food, and I was waiting for it, and then I never got that food because Bruce came and got me.
Really? See, and that's a prime example. I always tell guys, like, if you're trying to break into wrestling, whatever gear you have, always have it, because you just never know when you're gonna, in independent wrestling, you never know who's gonna not show up, so you always need somebody. Yeah,
and I think it was just like Bruce wanting to find maybe try and find a spot for me. But if you remember, like around that time, like that kind of had like a bit of a faction, I guess, but it was like me and Randy and like Carnage and that
and Harmony.
Harmony, and like that other Little Mac, Big Mac, Anna, like what I mean? There was like a dozen of
Anna,
us.
I forgot about her.
Come to the ring together.
And I forgot fucking Roy Mitten was around back then too.
Yeah.
I forgot about him too. Yeah, when you man, you're jogging my memory now.
So then I did that, and that's where like the Dandy Myers came from too, because Bruce
Randy
like the
and
idea
Dandy.
of Randy and Dandy.
It rhymes.
Yeah, I know.
It just
and that was something that like I didn't like that name at that time.
Yeah.
Because I was, like you said, like a young kid, like very lanky, like I think it was from the time in the year from when I turned 14 to when I turned 15, I had grown a foot.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
And if it makes you feel any better about the name, I was a super DJ jazzy jazz about rolling around this dirty dick Reigns.
I know. And that's like, as I got older, you know what I mean? Like I really like, it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter. But being like, like you said, like a 15-year-old kid.
Well, you're not confident, right?
Puberty, and you're awkward already. And you're, it's like I said, I didn't need to have some, crazy badass name, but like Dan or Danny wasn't good enough.
It's not like my real name's Butch.
Yeah. So, like I said, I didn't overly appreciate that name at that time, but as I, got older and like you start to realize like, all the other names that people had in not only Stampede, but just wrestling in general, like whatever, like it doesn't matter, Well,
and you kind of grew into it, as funny as it sounds, because, you get a name like that and you're just like, geez, what do I do with this?
Yeah.
And then with that group you guys had, I mean, you were booked into some what I'll call odd situations.
Mm-hmm.
Fair to say. And you guys always did your best to get it over. And that was what always impressed me, because I was at a time in my career when I would kind of look out the curtain and be like, I don't know if I would be doing this. And you guys worked your asses off at it. Do you know what I mean? Like I was always impressed with what you guys put into those characters.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, where you need to like realize it would have helped if it would have maybe been explained a little bit better to us, but like we're kind of on the show as like part of like comic relief.
For sure.
It's like we weren't there to be serious. And like I think someone
and when you want to be taken seriously and don't realize what your role is, it makes it hard.
Yeah. And like, someone like Randy, like, the way that he acts outside of the ring, you know what I mean? In a day-to-day scenario, it's like his character fit that a lot better than me trying to do that. Because then like, I'm trying to do it. It looks like I'm forced, I'm not being forced to do it. I'm forcing it myself.
Yeah. It didn't come as naturally because you're not as introverted as Randy Myers.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that guy, I don't know if I know anybody that's more extroverted than Randy Myers when it comes to his wrestling character. Personally, a little more of an introvert, but wrestling wise, definitely one of the more extroverted characters I know.
And that's the thing that I found difficult too, is being put in a tag team with him and supposed to be his brother and stuff. Like, am I supposed to just be like him, because like that's not my personality.
Yeah,
which,
vastly
again,
different personalities.
made it very, very difficult. Especially, like I said, just at that time in my life, right? Like being, 15 years old, like lanky, tall, skinny, like going through puberty, acne, all that kind of stuff. It's like
all the
it
best parts of life that you can act
Yeah.
out in front of an audience.
Yeah, like it took me like almost I was about 20 years old before like my frame started to fill out.
Yeah.
Like
Well, I was the same way, man. I graduated high school. I was 5'6", 160.
yeah,
Not that I was much bigger than that, but a year later I was 5'8", 185. It's just,
Yeah.
some of us don't grow.
yeah,
Of course, what are you now? 6'1", you bastard.
yeah, 6'2", I think. Probably kind of to now lose a few pounds, but
Every good tool needs a shed, buddy. Don't let anyone tell you different. Yeah, I'm going the other way, man. I'm shrinking now. At my peak, I was like 5'10", and now
wow.
I'm like 5'8" and just under 5'9", actually.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. It happens to all of us. Gravity. People say, "Oh, it's all that wrestling." Nah, it's just gravity.
Just gravity.
Forcing its way on me. Yeah. Okay. So now you're in the faction. You're a regular part of the show and then I gave you the name Superfly Dandy Dan, and geez, you ran with that for a long time too. I honestly envisioned you as like this white pimp guy. Like I would have done that with you. I don't know if your personality you would have wanted to do it, but that was in my head. I saw you as that, like the long coat, fedora, the whole deal, like the Godfather, but cooler.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I don't know. That's a tall order.
Yeah, I had a couple ideas for you. I also wanted to make you the king of the three-way dance, that you would accidentally win like every match and then become a champion by literally tripping and falling on somebody and getting a pin.
Yeah.
But you skipped a show and pissed me off. That's the truth.
I remember that. So the Superfly that came, I think that was after Bruce and Ross had stopped running.
Oh, okay.
And
that's
Bill
when we
Bell
kind of took over the book.
Yeah, Bill Bell became like the promoter, and then you took over booking.
Okay.
But in between that, there was that period of time where I was Mahatma Gandhi also.
Oh yes.
And to be honest, like when I first started doing that, I was like, man, I'm like, this is weird.
I thought that I'm bad because I think that shit's hilarious.
But once I started doing it and like kind of hanging out with Gamma Junior and Big Raj and Gamma Senior and stuff, and like getting to do, it was such a different thing from what I had been doing previously. It was like kind of refreshing to be able to do.
Well, especially when you're getting to, sit under the guidance of somebody like literally, I mean, that was his wrestling name, but it suits him, like the Great Gamma. When you get to sit around that guy in a locker room and learn, man, that's an experience you can't pay enough to get.
No, it was really cool because like I'm sure as it's like when you're a tag team with somebody, it's like you usually ride together, usually change pretty close together.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, can you see that text coming through?
No.
Sorry about that.
I don't care. No, honestly, I can't see anything. You're good.
Okay. But you usually ride together, change in the same locker room, that kind of stuff. So it's like when I started becoming part of like, the Karachi Vice, and like, so then it's like I wasn't hanging out so much, with these other guys or whatever. It's like now I'm with Raj and Junior and Gamma Senior. It was a totally different experience. And you're right. I was able to learn a lot from like, because obviously Gamma Senior wants his son and his nephew to do well. And by proxy, just me being a part of the group and being in their matches wants me to do well. So it was a really cool experience.
Well, and even if this isn't Gamma's style, so I don't want to say this the wrong way, but even if he didn't necessarily have a vested interest in wanting to make you better, he's just the kind of guy that would do that because he's just such a nice guy.
Yeah.
Right. He's somebody that, from growing up watching him locally on Stampede and getting to meet him, he's the first guy I kind of realized, and baby faces, please don't be upset when I say this, but he's the first guy I kind of realized like, oh, the heels are generally nicer. Some people don't like hearing that, but that's the truth. I always found the heels a lot, not always, but oftentimes the heels were just nicer guys.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think in some cases take them less seriously, themselves less seriously. What I always thought was funny is a guy like you, and you were never guilty of this, and tell me if you've seen it in other people, but you'll see guys that are over as baby faces, but they see the fun somebody has working heel and want to turn heel. So then they turn heel, and then the fans start like swearing at them and calling them really horrible names. And if they have a valet, they say the worst shit to their valets. Mm-hmm. And then you can tell the baby face at that point is offended by what the fans have said to them. And that always kind of would make me laugh. And I definitely never saw that with you. Like you never had that issue with the fans. You were just out there doing your job, putting on the show and going home.
Yeah, no, it was I always, again, as I got, later on in wrestling and like sort of, just like learning more and really finding your groove, because I do believe that it takes like, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years before you can really start feeling.
Well, especially with the number of matches you poor guys were getting, right?
Yeah.
Like I literally, man, I had, don't take this wrong way, but I probably had almost as many matches on my first tour as you had your first year.
Probably.
We worked 10 shows in 11 nights and we worked twice a night.
Yeah.
So there's, we worked 20, our first tour was 20 matches.
Yeah. I know. So that's the thing. Like you said, it takes a long time.
Yeah, man.
To really like start feeling comfortable and like putting it all together, right? Like how you said it before, how you had like the showmanship aspect to go along like with the ring work. It's like some guys can be like kind of a good showman, but like their work doesn't match that, or vice versa. So it's like to kind of get to a point where it's like both are kind of like at least close to equal is, it takes like quite a few years.
Yeah, for sure, man.
And it really wasn't. And I like, there's times where it's like, I thought like I was an okay baby face, or I thought I was an okay heel or whatever, but it really wasn't until when I teamed up with Tyler Breeze. We were super wild, and we at first we were just kind of like the the cheesy, almost like rocker style like baby faces.
Right.
It wasn't until we became like heels that like we're like, oh, like this is what it's supposed to be like.
Right. And that's when you started to figure it out, right?
Yeah. So
we had the advantage over you guys, quite frankly. Never mind how many matches we worked, but you guys didn't have the advantage. Like I can remember, I never got to because I was a heel, but guys like the Pollocks, and you know what I mean? Those guys, the Pollocks, the Harry, the TJs, and those guys, they would get to work the Gammas and the Cuban Assassins, but I was always a heel, so I never got to wrestle those guys. So Bruce would book himself as the referee, and then he would tell me what to do. That's how Bruce taught me how to work. I didn't get to work the veterans. You guys didn't have that. So even that kind of didn't make it easy for you to develop, right?
No, there wasn't a lot of like, real like veteran, like those old time Stampede guys around by the time I was coming around.
Well, and even at that, there was guys like myself and TJ and Harry that were there when you were coming up and we were doing the booking, but we were always, you guys were still coming up and we were the main event guys. And that's one of the mistakes I think I made as a booker for sure, was not working down the card more to bring you guys along, if that makes sense. Well,
and I think too, it's like, there just wasn't enough like out of town shows, you know what I mean? Like spot shows and stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like, whatever you want to do for Calgary and Edmonton, like those, are like the bread and butter, right? So you want to, be putting on whatever I guess the best card you can, right?
Yeah, you want to put your best foot forward.
Yeah, but on those out of town shows where you're there like once every 6 months, you know what I mean? You can kind of mix it up and, have different,
Well, and not only that, that's where you tell a guy like, hey, I know you've only had 5 matches, but go out there and put in 25 minutes. Because that's where you learn how to work.
Cool.
Where you call all your spots, in the locker room, you think you got a 25-minute match and you go through all your shit and you hear the ref go 5 minutes gone.
I know. I remember like, I don't know if it was a real, I assume it was, but like, Bruce would have like some of us young guys or whatever, like me and Dusty or Grizz or, whoever, right? Like, we'd be the opening match and be like, oh, go 10-minute Broadway or whatever. And then you get out there and you hear 20-minute time limit. Fantastic. Those poor fans, they were really subjected to some bad wrestling
from all of us. Do you know what I mean? Like I can remember getting out of the ring after my first match. I worked Ted, so it wasn't like I didn't have, he was still young too, but it wasn't like I didn't have somebody capable to work with.
Yeah,
I'm thinking, man, that match was awesome. Like I was shining my shoes all the way home. And later on, man, I watched that match. I was like, holy shit! I didn't even know there was a crowd in the building.
Yeah,
like just. Yeah, you thought it was so awesome and you go back and look. So it just takes time, man. And that's what I think a lot of guys, one of the reasons I think people emulate what they see on television is because there's a very limited amount of crowd work on television. So it's just spot.
Yeah.
So guys if you tell the average guy today that's been working for a few years, I'll say, to go 30 minutes.
Yeah.
They probably can't.
No.
Not because they're not capable, because they just don't have the timing to do that.
Yeah. And I think too, just again, I mean, in Alberta more specifically, I guess is it's pretty much just like Calgary and Edmonton, right? Like that run shows, and there's not a lot of, like I said, these out of town shows where you can, experiment more and see,
put 2 young guys in there for half an hour.
Yeah, and because when you are trying to run like your A show or whatever, you don't want to have a match going super long and like boring the audience to death.
Yeah. Well,
Right?
you can't like it just waters down the show, right? It kills the crowd. If there was a hot match before that, and then because usually what I would try and do, and to be quite honest, I might have ripped this from Lance at some point. But I would always bury the match I wasn't super confident in, we'll say, in the third spot.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I'd come out, put the babyface over in the first match, and pop the crowd. Second match would be, either a no finisher, the heel will go over, and the third match I would put like a kind of a match with two young guys to go 10 minutes and kind of, and then the fourth match right before the intermission, I put another hot match out there.
Yep.
And that way the guys kind of got it sandwiched in between some stuff. They weren't going out there to a cold crowd to try and bring them up, which was what I seen a position I seen a lot of you guys get stuck in.
Oh yeah.
Like, hey, I know this crowd has no idea who you are. You're not that good at working the crowd yet, but let me put you out first so you can eat shit for 15 minutes.
Yep. Sounds like fun.
Yeah. But again, and to be honest, like think about in front of the fans, and this is how many plates of dicks did you eat in front of the crowd before you figured out how to work the crowd?
Tons.
You know what I mean? It's like anything. You kind of, even as a musician or a comedian or anything you're performing, you're going to eat shit a lot.
Yeah.
Because not, and then that's how you figure out what works. You eat shit and like, oh, okay, that didn't work. And you try something else.
Yeah, exactly.
But, there's nothing more embarrassing than like, going to vault over the top rope and catching your toes.
Well, it's happened to me a few times going for the springboard and eventually like, it's like, it sucks because there's quite a while where I could do them like no problem. And then you miss that one and you're like, oh, like you want to try again. It's like, okay, you got that one, but it's still always in the back of your mind. Like I'd just stop doing them.
You get shook. Yeah, for sure. I used to do it. I think I stole it. I want to say from Blitzkrieg. Stand outside the ring, kind of jump up, pop your ass on the rope and do a moonsault into the ring. Yeah. And I would do it, I was doing it pretty good. And then for whatever reason, one day I was wrestling my brother and I turned my head doing it and landed with my forearm on his face. Ooh. Yeah, it was fairly stiff. And I never did it again. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Because it was just like, I can't miss that. And after that, like you say, it's in your head. Like once you fuck something like that up. So I never did it. After I forearmed my brother right in the face, gave him a bloody nose, I never did it again. Maybe that's why I'm a pussy too,
Maybe.
But I don't know. I mean, I don't think people realize we zig when we should zag and people get hurt, but I think when you do something like that, like, and actually hurt somebody or make them bleed the hard way, I always, okay, it's a tough man's sport and it comes with the business part of it. But then, I remember Tiger Khan gave me this one, right? And I would use it all the time, but you still feel shitty, but you'd be like, yeah, it's good for the business. Yeah. You know what I mean? It looks good when somebody gets a bloody nose or a bloody mouth, but at the same time, it's like, man, I could have broke that guy's nose or cracked his orbital bone with my forearm. Like that could have gone really wrong,
Yeah, no kidding. And like, that's the thing too, is like, it's like with wrestling, it's like, you're supposed to be able to go in there and not injure each other. So you can go out and do it again the next night.
The whole point.
Next night, right?
Yeah.
We're not UFC fighters. And that's what some guys kind of forget sometimes too. It's like, they want to go in there and make it look good and be stiff. And there's a difference between, working a little snug and, not knocking a guy out.
Well, and the other thing is too, and back to what we were saying earlier, if you're working night in and night out, you get hardened. Do you know what I mean? So you can take a lot more when guys are laying it in. But if you're working twice a month, you're not as hard as you think. So when guys are really going out there and they're working, strong style kind of thing, there's a point where it's just like there's diminishing returns where it just, it just looks stiff. Like it doesn't, the art's gone. Right. Yeah. And to me, that's, to me, and everyone has maybe a different opinion, but my opinion on pro wrestling is everyone attacks wrestling outside of wrestling at its lowest point and that it's fixed. Yeah. You know what I mean? Everyone, that's bullshit. It's fixed. Okay. I'm going to give you that. I'm not going to argue with you. Where the art form is literally making it look like you're killing each other without hurting each other at all. And I think that's sometimes lost in the art of people like, oh, I want it to look good, so I'll just actually punch you in the mouth. Like, are you fucking crazy? That's not what this is.
Yeah. And like you said, they get lost and it's like, so we're out there trying to do this in one take. And it's not like we're just on a sound stage and there's nobody else around us and you can just completely focus on doing this whole match in one take. It's also interactive theater.
Yes.
You're interacting with the audience at the exact same time and you don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah. When's the last time, and this is, I don't want to minimize it, but when's the last time you've seen a ballet dancer work the room?
Yeah. Exactly.
It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
That to me, again, that's the art of wrestling where it's, full contact ballroom dancing.
Yeah.
Right. Like Again, people are going to be like, oh, you said it's fake. You said it's this, said it's that. No, man. I did it for 20 years and I love it. Like pro wrestling runs through my veins. But to me, the art is really and truly like people like, oh, you learn how to fall. Yeah, but learning how to fall doesn't necessarily save you from getting hurt. Like it's people they miss the art. They don't understand it. And if people always minimize, I'm going to use internet writers. Like, I don't know if you're around. Do you ever hear the name Blake Norton? He was the first internet writer I ever knew of.
Yeah.
He came to the dungeon for a little while and nice enough guy. I don't want to piss too hard on him, but he was an internet writer and he came to the dungeon and he wasn't in great shape. And quite frankly, got the shit kicked out of him. And he went away and wrote in his column that we bullied him and he was treated really poorly at the dungeon. And it was just like, well, no, we all did the same stuff you did. You just couldn't take it.
Yeah. That was not the same thing, but like, I always had a problem when you'd see these other wrestling schools from wherever, it doesn't matter. And they'd have, like chop day.
Yeah.
Like wait till the end of like the, like whatever you want to call it, their semester or whatever. It's like if they had their wrestling class was, 3-6 months long. And then the last class, they all get chop day. It's like, man, it was chop day every day. In the Are you kidding me? Like,
you take 25 to warm up.
Yeah. Like, man, and that was the thing too, is like, so to kind of backtrack a little bit, but like, like you said, when I went to the dungeon, like I was this skinny, like 15-year-old kid. And like, there's guys there, like, I never knew how old you were until just your last episode when you said you're, I think 49.
Yeah. I just turned 49.
Yeah. So you're 15 years older than I am, right?
I literally double your age at when you were at the dungeon.
Yeah. So there's guys in there that were double my age and like easily double my weight. With someone like Carnage. Are you kidding me?
Oh, for Carnage was double my fucking weight. That guy was huge.
It's like being just like this kid. And like, when you said like, you didn't think I'd make it, like, yeah, like I almost had like anxiety every time going to the dungeon. Cause like just being like that young and like, I was expected to just jump in there just be in the mix.
Well, and it wasn't fair to you guys because you had come in after Harry and TJ.
Yeah.
Right. And so when Harry was 10 or 11 when I started training. And I can remember Harry trying to do schoolboys and he was working with my brother, who at the time was about 180 pounds, not a huge guy, but not a little guy. And Harry couldn't get his head out of the way because he just wasn't big enough to get over. Yeah. And he 4 or 5 times he rolled Dean right over his own face and just kept getting up and doing it. So then, and TJ was 15 or 16 when I went to the dungeon. So, I mean, you guys were just fucking babies and you're working out with grown men. Like, and again, people don't understand how intimidating the dungeon is in the first place. And then to have to go in there with established guys that are like you say, twice your age, twice your height and weight. And I think I even teased you about having a room with me on the road and I was going to take advantage of you.
It was years. I remember that.
What's that?
It was like playing with my ears.
Oh, I fucking love doing that to people. DJ used to get it pretty bad too. I'm surprised none of you guys actually got cauliflower ears. It's probably why you didn't, because I don't have it either, and I play with my ears all the time. Mm-hmm. And then you got people like my brother Dean who look like a dog chewed on his ears. I don't know. That's one thing. I don't know. Maybe you get it, but I've had a lot of wrestling coaches and seen a lot of cauliflower ears in my day, man. And I've seen like one of my old coaches, Clive Llewellyn, had to peel the foam off a headphone to try and jam it in his ear. I remember thinking, like, that's not going to happen to me. Like, I'm not going to have that.
No, thanks.
I remember
some guys are like, Harry was trying to get cauliflower ears because he thought he would make them look tough. I'm like, I don't think you need any help in that department there.
Yeah, no shit, man. What? Yeah, when you're like, I remember teasing him because he was big enough at one point. He had to cut weight to make heavyweight in the UFC. He's like 280. I remember telling him, like, hey man, settle down. Like, if you got to cut weight to make heavyweight, you're too fucking big. Just So at that point, people are already afraid of you.
Yeah.
And then you find out he's an actual animal, actually. And that's whose shirt I'm wearing right now, actually.
I see that. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to wear my Karachi Vice shirt today, but to be honest with you, I'm always a little worried about how that in today's climate is going to get perceived.
Yeah, I think it was a little while ago, but I'm sure you probably have him on Facebook too, but Farron Muncie, the ref.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, he said
one of the nicest guys in the world.
Oh, yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah.
Said something to me about how he'd like to see Mahatma Gandhi back. I'm like, I don't think that's PG, bud.
No, that is
or PC. Like
that ain't up. Well, and now it'd be, and truth is, and I'm not saying I agree or disagree, but it'd be cultural appropriation.
Yeah.
right? Like somebody would crawl up your ass. So,
Oh yeah.
well, you know what though? Here's the cool thing about independent wrestling. We don't have to care because it's theater. As long as, to me, as long like you could do the Mahatma Gandhi character, but the minute you paint your face, now we're having a different conversation.
Yeah.
You know, so I think you can kind of get away with it. I think some of it's just, the other thing is how much shit are you willing to tolerate for your art?
Yeah.
You know, there's certain things like, oh, we should do this. Oh man, the shit ain't worth it. Like, let's not do that. So I always think you need to temper, you know, you got freedom of speech, freedom to kind of say and do what you want to a certain level, but you also got to temper that with, okay, how much backlash am I willing to receive for the dumb shit I'm about to do?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, like I actually put a tweet out yesterday. I'd put something out and, you know, I got a few more notifications than I would normally get from one of my tweets. And so, of course, I log onto my Twitter last night and I see a bunch of notifications. And literally my first thought is, oh, great. What the fuck did I say? You know, like what, who's mad at me now? What have I done? And I looked and it was all good. It was fine. But I was just like, oh, geez, what, you know, and it's sad that now you're scared that, oh, geez, what did I say that people are going to come after me? Because I don't, you know, I often don't watch what I say.
Yeah, I know it's kind of a shame that it's just become so much like almost like looking for a reason to, you know, like get upset with people.
Well, and not only that, people are looking for reasons to be offended for other people, which I find really fucking weird.
Yeah.
You know, like I know you watch stand up. I assume you watch Bert Kreischer.
I don't know.
Okay, well, turn off your mic right now and go watch, because I'm telling you right now, so he's got a few specials on Netflix. Okay. Watch his latest one. It's called Hey Big Guy. Okay. But he does a bit in there, and I won't ruin the bit for you because honestly, you got to watch it and it'll make you howl. But he does a bit in there about he's having a good time with somebody who's of a particular race, and they have a really good rapport. They're both enjoying the jokes. It's all a good time. And somebody else gets offended for this person and starts taking him to task. And it's like, these two people are having a great rapport. They're having a good time. And somebody gets fucking mad. I don't understand. Like, why do you have to be offended for this person?
Yeah. I don't understand that either.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, man. I guess I can't say that, because if somebody, you know, for instance, I've, you know, some pretty close First Nations friend. And if somebody attacks the First Nations, I generally do get offended on their behalf. Yeah. You know, I guess I'm not offended for them. I'm just offended, you know?
Yeah.
And I never thought I would say that out loud, but I guess it's true. You know, you can't talk shit about Red Thunder. He's my man.
That's right.
You know, and that's, you know, that's the thing is, I'm the first one to say, to be honest with you, Dan, that stereotypes exist for a reason. You know, stereotype, you shouldn't stereotype, you shouldn't generalize, you shouldn't paint with broad strokes, but there's also a reason these things exist. But you have to be very, very, very cautious how you apply them.
I agree.
You know, because you could assume every white guy's a racist idiot like me. But I would prefer you to say that guy used to be a racist idiot. Now he's working on himself.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, I'm a kinder, gentler asshole is what I like to think of it. All right. Now we've gone way off track here. So let's come back. Let's bring you back. You're working at Stampede now. You're a main part of the roster. You're working up the ranks. You and Matthias Wild have been tag teaming. And then did you guys split and feud, or did he get signed? How did that kind of end?
Both. So we never did anything together in Stampede.
Okay.
He kind of came just after Stampede closed. I think when was that? 2008.
Okay.
And then him and I actually went together down to California and wrestled a little bit down there.
Okay.
In like March, I think, of 2008. Someone else from Lance's school, they figured out that there was like some connection with like the NWA or something down there.
Okay.
With a guy named Dave Marquez, who still does like championship wrestling from Hollywood and wherever. He's, you know, very good when it comes to the backstage stuff.
Right.
But anyway, they were just always like kind of like looking for, I guess, other like international talent,
sure,
or whatever, come and mix in. So they'd have guys come from, you know, Australia or Canada or, you know, wherever. So we went down together, and it was me and Matthias and that other guy, Frenchie, Tom LaRufa. I don't know if you remember him. I think he did a Stampede show. He wrestled as like Eagle Mask or something. Anyways, So the three of us went, and of the three of us, me and Matthias looked like we could be a tag team. Like the other guy had long, dark hair and a big bushy beard.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So I said to Matt, I was like, I don't think that all three of us are going to be getting singles matches on these shows that we're going to, right? They're probably going to put us together because we look like we could be a tag team.
Yeah.
So like, why not go with that?
For sure.
So we got matching gear and matching ring jackets and stuff like that. And went down there, and once they knew that we said like, hey, we can be a team or we can do singles or whatever. But like every show we did, we were a team.
Okay.
So that's where we just went down there, and we were, going to training every day. We did a lot of stuff with TJ Perkins, who's in WWE, and he's in like Impact and stuff now and whatever.
He had a pretty good run in WWE.
Yeah. He won that Cruiserweight Classic a few years ago and stuff.
Yeah, you bet.
So we did a lot of stuff with him. In training or whatever. So we were wrestling like every day, whether it was, matches or just at the gym and stuff.
Oh, that's
we were
good.
able to kind of work out a lot of the kinks and stuff like that. And actually, while we were down there, there was one show that we weren't actually booked on to begin with, and then ended up doing it. And so we had to go get changed. And Adam Pearce, who's a producer in WWE now, he was the NWA champion at that time.
Okay.
And he was on this show, and he was in like the room where that Dave Marquez was. And like, cause somebody came to get us, they're like, hey, get your gear, follow up. So that's where we just went to change.
So you always have your gear, kid.
Yeah, exactly. So we were in there, and like, we had these really nice sparkly ring jackets. And I don't know, Adam Pearce was upset about something. But then he was whatever it was. And he was just like, getting on guys about everything. And he's like, hey, and look at these two. Look at these nice ring jackets they have. Like, this is how you become a star. And we're like, we thought we were getting in trouble.
Just waiting to eat shit.
Right? Like, but then, so, I mean, it was pretty cool to have the NWA champion kind of, put you over to the boys, right?
For sure, man.
So that was cool. But when we came back to Calgary after that, we started wrestling for PWA together and doing, tag teaming or whatever. And that's like, first when we were just kind of like the white meat baby faces, but it wasn't until we turned heel that we really found our groove.
Right.
And the fans really, they really hated us. And like, lucky for us, we had a really good foil in Chucky and BVD.
Boy, yeah, there you go. Hey.
Yeah. So we got to do some really fun stuff with them. We had a really killer ladder match. I'm at the Acadia Rec Center that sent both me and Chucky to the ER.
Oh, Jesus, guys.
Yeah. I busted open pretty good. I got my head sliced open. Chucky did a moonsault into me with the ladder, like holding it.
Oh, my Lord.
And my head got cut all along from the ladder. And you can see it on the tape. I grabbed my head right away or whatever, but like just in the moment with the adrenaline or whatever, whatever the match done, like I think we got, standing ovation. Everybody was really happy with it. And I come to the back and the boys are like, I think your head's bleeding. And I was bleeding from my forehead too. And I'm like, oh no, it's just from here. I'm like, they're like, no, like I think up here is like kind of open. And like, I'm trying to feel, and I'm like, oh shit, I think so. And so I tried to like, I was covered in blood, like covered. And I tried to go and wash it off or whatever. And like, then the water's going in the cut. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. I have to go to the hospital. So like me and Chucky, his dad drove us to Rocky View Hospital, and we're walking to the ER and just covered, and you know what I mean. And the like at triage where they're like, "What happened to you guys?" Like,
I would love to see the look on their faces when you guys.
Yeah, they were scared. Like, and I mean, Chucky was still in his wrestling gear and stuff, and like it was a mess. So like we went, and I had to get 16 staples and 20 stitches.
Oh, that must have felt awesome in the head.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And then and so I think I was supposed to have them in for like 2 weeks or something. And I got them taken out early because of course I had a match like, coming up. And so I went to the doctor to go get the staples taken out. And he's like, was this guy getting paid by the staple or what? Like, why is there so many? Like,
so the surgeon probably was making you pay a little bit. Or when they put the staples in, they're trying to teach you a lesson,
Anyway, so yeah. Jesus. Yeah. So, but after that, it was, I think that was like in April, and I think it was in June is when then me and Matthias we got to wrestle Lance Storm and Jerry Lynn.
Oh, how was that?
On the Night of Champions show.
Yeah.
So that was super cool. Cause
I'm a fairly big Jerry Lynn mark.
Yeah. It was super cool. I can't remember. I think I did something one time, like in Winnipeg with maybe like Sean Davari.
Okay.
But that was like an 8-man tag or something. So like, I don't know that we had, a lot of interaction. So this was like my first, really big like match with
high profile guys.
Yeah. So like it was super cool. And again, like the match like went off like so good.
Nice. Good for you.
And, we were very happy with it. And it was right before that maybe is when Matthias got signed.
Okay.
So I think we did that match, and then he was here for a couple months because he had to wait for his like work visa and stuff like that. So we did end up having a little series of matches before he took off.
Nice, man. Good for you. That's awesome. So then fast forward, I kind of start coming around again, but you've been around, you and Pete Powers that started to tag, but you're starting to have some shoulder problems. Like your shoulder's starting to pop out in the middle of matches and stuff.
Yeah. So the very first time it happened, it was in a tag match with you and Chris Steele.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. In 2007.
Probably Stiff Steele did it.
It was him. Yeah, he threw me in the corner, gave me a big like running splash, and pulled me out for a bulldog. Okay. And it wasn't like his fault, but just the way I landed, like my arm hit first or something, and like it just like went out. And I guess from there, like I should have obviously taken a more active approach in doing physiotherapy after that. But I'm like, oh, it's back in. Okay, like I had no idea, right? And so. Yeah, from 2007 until my surgery in 2014, man, I don't know. Like there was nothing left. Like it must have come out like easily over 100 times.
Really?
Like, yeah, it was coming up. Like there'd be little stints where it'd be like really good, wouldn't come out, for months and months and months at a time. But then as soon as it did, it's just like then it's all the time. Man,
my mouth's watering. Like I can kind of feel it. And truth is, I only had one separated shoulder. It was right at the end of my career. And it was, I broke my ankle, broke my toe, tore my knee, shoulders. I went through a lot of shit in the ring. Yeah. As soon as I separate and would finish the match. Do you know what I mean? Separated my shoulder. Nope. I got to go home right now. Like it was the most uncomfortable thing I've ever dealt with.
Yeah. It's not, there's most times for me, it would go out and come back in like pretty quickly, but there's a few times where it's like, it was out and it's like, it just wouldn't go back in. Like it was, so it's just like stuck there and it's like, but yeah, so it was 2012 or 13 when I left PWA. That's when that Heart Legacy Wrestling was happening. And they did, they did the show at the Pavilion the first month. And then it was like Next Generation Wrestling or whatever, where,
I remember that Pavilion. I was actually at that Pavilion show.
Yeah. So you were there for the first one. I think
they did that Legends thing and we walked out to the ring.
Yeah. So like, I mean, that was super cool, right? Like, growing up in Calgary and hearing about Stampede Wrestling and becoming, I don't want to call myself like a history buff or whatever, but, just knowing the history of Stampede and all the great wrestlers and everything like that got to wrestle there. So to be able to get to wrestle there.
That's one of the highlights of my career. The few times I got to wrestle in the pavilions.
That was super cool. And then after that, for the second show, like they told me to like find a tag team partner. I was going to wrestle against Wavell and Divine. And Pete Powers was just coming back from Mexico. He went to go do some stuff down there with AAA.
Okay.
Him and Taya Valkyrie and Pistol Pete all went down together and Pete Wilson, he only stayed for a few weeks, but Powers was down there for a few months.
Right.
And he was coming back and I'm like, of the guys available, you know what I mean? Who didn't have like an affiliation with other promotions who, couldn't,
who you could actually use basically.
Yeah. I'm like, this is the guy I want. And like, we just clicked like right away. Like we were both like invested in the team. Like, we got the matching gear, like right away. We, we're thinking of like different moves we could do, like the team name, all that kind of stuff. And like, we didn't end up having an overly long run together as a team, which was like, no, I don't call it a regret because I don't really live with regrets, but that is something I would have liked to have done. Cause I feel like him and I, like I said, in my mind, like we clicked and there was like, just something about us or whatever.
Working singles is cool, man, but there's something special about when you have a tag team partner that you click with. The matches are just so fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So we did a lot of stuff in RCW or whatever together, and we did a couple matches out in BC for ECCW and that kind of stuff. But
Right.
it was in 2014, my shoulder came out one time and I couldn't get it back in, and it was kind of just like, no, 2013, late 2013, because it was, anyways, I couldn't get it back in for a while. Eventually it did, but it was kind of like, okay, like enough's enough. Like I need to get this fixed, you know?
Your quality of life's dog shit at that point, right?
Yeah. It was, so I remember I went to the doctor, and that was in November. And then I ended up, by the time I got all the MRIs and all that kind of stuff done, it was June when I had my surgery.
Right.
And it was pretty involved. Like they had to completely rebuild the labrum. They said there was nothing left. There was a piece of broken bone just floating around in the socket. They had
probably what prevented it from going back in, because it'd probably be in the way.
Yeah. They had to do some work into like from my bicep and into my chest and in my rotator cuff. And like, they said it was a lot of work, you know, and I'd have to take a year off
because of Chris Steele.
Because of Chris Steele. Yeah. So in that time, like, I started thinking to myself, because I can't remember how old was I, maybe like 26, maybe, or 27. Okay. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what do I do here? Do I like take this year off to rehab? And then, like, I can't remember how old I was exactly, 27, 20, whatever. But, and then, you know, try and give like wrestling kind of like one more go to like make it to WWE. Because I did go to a few tryouts down in Florida, and I did some extra work when they would come to Calgary and Edmonton and stuff. So I had interactions with WWE.
Okay.
You know, so it wasn't like in all this time, like I was just, you know, hoping the phone's going to ring.
It wasn't some pie in the sky bullshit.
Yeah. Like I had some interactions and gotten positive feedback. Right. But it's like, at the same time, it's like, even though like, you know, actually quite a few guys from Calgary or by way of Calgary, like, you know, had gotten contracts in that time. Like, you know, you and I know it's like, it's not easy, right? Like the chances of it happening are slim.
Well, and sometimes it's not the best guy. Sometimes it's just luck, man.
And, you know, so I was like, what do I do here? Like take this year to rehab and get in like really good shape and just focus on trying to go to WWE. And it's like at that, like kind of give myself until I'm 30, or do I just use this as kind of like my escape route right now?
This is the time to pull the chute.
Yeah. And that's pretty much what I did. I kind of decided that, you know, like in being realistic about it, I'm like, the chances of me getting signed to WWE are, you know, probably pretty slim, if any. And it's like, do I really want to do this for a few more years and then say stop when I'm 30? But now I'm just like 2-3 years behind where I would have been in life otherwise, right? So I made the decision to, you know, pretty much stop wrestling and to go back to school and stuff like that at that time. So
okay. And what did you take in school?
I went to Mount Royal University and I got a bachelor's degree in business administration.
Okay.
With a concentration in innovation and entrepreneurship.
Oh, good for you, fancy boy. And let me ask you this question though. Unlike some people I know, are you using your degree?
I am. Yeah.
Attaboy. Yeah, there's a lot of people with art history degrees working in soup kitchens, you know?
Yeah. I was, you know, I really enjoyed actually going back to school. I wasn't really sure what to expect, especially being, you know, a more mature student.
Right.
And there, to be fair, like I was generally the oldest person in the class.
To be fair.
Yeah. to be fair.
To be fair.
It's like there was one time, you know, at the beginning of each semester, whatever, every class you go in, it's like, oh, they want you to get to know the class or whatever. And so get in groups of whatever, 4 or 5, and come up with 3 things that you all have in common. And again, like I'm at this point, I'm in my 30s, I think. Right. And so like, there's one guy, like he must've just been 18, and he's like, what's your guys' favorite type of alcohol or whatever? And I'm like, whatever. Not, I don't want to say it's dumb, but it was just kind of an immature. I mean, like, and one guy, like, he must've been super smart. He's like, I'm not old enough to drink yet.
Doogie Howser.
And I'm like, where am I? Like, what's going on?
I'm not old enough to drink yet.
So, but yeah, I wasn't exactly sure what it is I wanted to. I knew that I wanted to get a business degree, but I wasn't sure exactly kind of what I was going to do with it or where, like, how I wanted to kind of pursue it. Because, you can do finance or accounting or management or marketing or all kinds of stuff, right? But to do the business program, you need to take like the intro class to all of those things.
Right.
And it's supposed to be like, here's what this is more or less about. And then you can decide.
Now, what do you want to specialize in?
Yeah. And when I did the entrepreneurship class, it was a lot of presentations, and like, it really made you be creative. And it's like, it wasn't like wrestling, but it's like, it was kind of like wrestling was like preparing me for that.
It's amazing how comfortable you are speaking in front of people compared to other people.
Yeah. Big time. Big time. So I was like, this is what school can be like. You know what I mean? Because like, I wasn't definitely not an overly academic student in, junior high and high school. And most of us, I really just didn't try, just didn't put in the effort.
Just didn't give a shit, period.
But it's like, like when I was in university, I was like making the honor roll and stuff because like I wanted to be there, and these are classes that I want to take. And
when I went back to state as a mature student too, you have to beat the 18-year-olds, right? You can't have these 18-year-old pimpolians showing you up. Like, if you go there and you fail a class, you're 30, man. You just wasted your money and your time. It's a different thing. You got to apply yourself at that age.
Yeah. So, and like I said, it totally made me feel comfortable. Like, I had no problem doing presentations and stuff.
Right.
And in the entrepreneurship program, like I said, there's so much of it. So in that very first class, it was to essentially like come up with an idea that doesn't exist, like for a product, which is pretty hard to do. So, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to completely be brand new, but like an innovative thing. So the thing that we came up with was a workout supplement, like dispensing machine.
Oh, okay.
That
nice.
could either be like at the gym, like on the wall, or you could have it in your house, right? So you don't have these big tubs of protein, and like, it's just a much more condensed, like, just kind of almost, it would almost be like a Keurig coffee machine type thing.
Okay.
Something like that. And we did really well. We ended up going to the finals of because they have it was like 8 different classes, and they had all, whoever had the best one in each class went on to the finals, and then would be presenting in front of all the classes on like the special nights or whatever in the big auditorium and stuff. And we didn't win the whole thing, but we did win People's Choice from the voting that night. So that was super cool.
Congratulations. That's awesome, man. Good for you.
Thank you. And I do wish that we would have like pursued that idea more, because I do think that there's something there. But like, when you're coming up with a brand new idea, like we would have to, I don't know, go to China or something, or like to get one of these things, like a prototype.
Yeah, they're just going to steal your idea. Well, now with 3D printers, you can do a lot more, but still.
But like, to get a prototype made or whatever, you got to hope that it works. And if it doesn't, then you're back to, and like, that stuff's not cheap. And for, for
patents
students
aren't cheap. Like,
So I do wish that we were able to continue on with it more, but it just wasn't feasible at that time, because, university takes up so much of your time anyways, right? Like, it was a lot of work. But and then there was another class I did called The Art of the Pitch, which is, again, learning to pitch your idea.
Yeah, you bet.
Right? And we had it was called the 100-word pitch competition. So it was if you're in an elevator with somebody and you got like 30 seconds, can you pitch them your idea? Right?
You gotta trim the fat.
Yeah. So we did that one, and my idea was for like, a workout app, right? Like, I don't have one, right? Like, I didn't make one. It's nothing. And it didn't need to be, right? Like, other people did, like, you want to just try and convince somebody to do something, right? I want to convince you to download my app. Somebody else was trying to convince you to try dark chocolate. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter. It was just for that purpose. But
some sort of sales pitch.
Yeah. But I ended up winning that one too. So I was, like, it's all those years of wrestling. And like, I never considered myself that I was this, great promo guy, but being in front of a crowd for 15 years, you learn a trick or two.
Well, I think most importantly, you get comfortable and confident.
Yeah.
Right. You went from a point, you're 15 years old. You're not even confident in yourself yet. Never mind being confident in the crazy gimmick you've been given and the silliness around it. Right. So once you build that confidence, nobody can take that away from you. And when you go in front of a crowd night after night, eating shit, like we were talking about earlier, and once you figure it out, you don't look back. And those are skills. Like you say, when I was in college, I used to go do what's called itinerant speaking, and I'd go speak to youth groups at churches in small towns and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I didn't realize that was preparing me, because when I got into pro wrestling, I was extremely comfortable talking on the mic where other guys were afraid of it. So all of these things, and then fast forward, I get into, I'm kind of like you, I was in sales and retail for a long time. So you develop this skill set with people that nobody else has. And like, oh, you just have such a way with people. Well, it didn't just happen. I've been doing this my entire life.
Yeah. I would tell the guys, because like they were so nervous when we had to do it in front of the big auditorium and in front of a few hundred people. I'm like, well, guys, firstly, like it's dark. You're not gonna be able to see anybody.
Yeah.
And I'm like, secondly, it's way easier doing it in front of a big auditorium instead of like our class of, 25 people.
Yeah, it's a faceless mob now, right?
Yeah. And I'm like, guys, I used to go out there with no shirt on in sparkly underwear. And like this, going out there in a suit's a piece of cake. Like,
I got this. In sparkly underwear. Yeah, and very revealing underpants.
Yeah, didn't leave a lot to the imagination, unfortunately.
No, yeah. If the crowd if you had change in your pocket, the crowd would be able to count it.
Yeah,
man. And that's it's ballroom dancing in your underwear. It's, it's
exactly.
But the thing about pro wrestling is, I always say too, that anybody can do it. You have to be willing. You know what I mean? And people look at a guy like me that, I'm not a big guy. They're like, well, how were you a pro wrestler for so long? Actually, I was willing. Just simply willing. And it's the same with, how do you develop good people skills? You have to be willing. You have to be willing to learn. You have to be willing to apply all the shit you've learned, reach back, figure it out. But you also have to be willing to eat shit to learn.
And it's kind of just like anything though. Like you got to stick with it, right? Like if you'll never get good at something just on the first day.
No, well,
right?
and that's exactly it, right? Like you got to pay your dues, And one thing I kind of gleaned when I broke into wrestling was, I looked around, and when I broke in, guys like Jason Anderson, Ken Johnson, like Anderson was starting to go to Japan and Germany, Saudi. So these guys were starting to travel, and I talked to them and realized, okay, so they've been around for 10 years, and now they're just starting to really do some stuff.
Yeah.
And so in my head, I was like, okay, 10 years is what I'm going to have to put into this to kind of get to the next level. And unfortunately, when I was there for 10 years, there was nowhere to go.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? WWE had bought WCW, they'd bought ECW. They were released
pickens there in the
oh
early
man
2000s.
And it wasn't like there was developmentals. There was OVW.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? So, and at that time they would have had like, the John Cena's, Brock Lesnar was down there at the time I kind of started to think. So it's just kind of like, man, there's nowhere to go. Like and that was the one thing it was sad, because it was just like, man, we had a whole roster of guys that if we would have got in a few years earlier or a few years later, probably would have done pretty well.
Yeah.
And I would definitely include you in that, right? Or even if we were breaking in today, right? If we were 15 years younger, 20 years younger, who knows?
Yeah. One thing that not that I live with, any regrets or whatever, but something I maybe should have done was, approach Lance and try and, go to his school.
Right.
Like as because I saw that he did do that with a few people that like, guys that know how to work already or whatever that are local, like, maybe he doesn't charge the full price, maybe he does, but like, just having someone like Lance who has, same thing, the connections to WWE or
somebody in your corner, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's something, that, again, maybe I should have done, maybe not, whatever. Like it's
like you say, woulda, coulda, shoulda, you know what I mean? Like people think I'm a fucking idiot, and that's fair, but I turned down 3 tryouts with the WWE, 3 dark matches. The first one I definitely should have took. The other 2, I would have got a decent payday, and I would have been able to say I wrestled in the WWE ring, but nobody got signed. Like there were times when they weren't looking for anybody, they were looking for cannon fodder. And I'm not going to disrespect the experience anybody had being there and working the WWE show. But for me, I never grew up with the dream to wrestle for the WWE. I grew up with the dream to make a living wrestling, as weird as that sounds. So I was never like, oh, I'll go there at any cost. The first time I should have definitely, I'd only been training about 6 months, and I definitely should have took that opportunity. But the next 2, I was like, they're not looking for me. Like I know what they're looking for, and it ain't fucking me.
Yeah.
So, and then, you decide at that point too, which is a decision you had to make, do I keep tearing up my body for this, even, whether I love it or not? Do I keep doing it just to keep doing it? Or, do I pack it in, go to school and, close that chapter in my life and remember it fondly?
Yeah, exactly. And like, I did have a couple matches after my first shoulder surgery. Danny Duggan, who runs CWE Wrestling.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He was, starting to want to branch out of Manitoba and do these tours across the prairies. And like now, like I'm not now, but previously he's done them all the way out to Vancouver and all the way out to like Toronto. And,
He's gone up north.
Oh, like he does like, what is it, 30, 40 shows in the same amount of days. Like, good Lord.
Yeah. That's how Can-Am used to run, man.
Yeah. But so he was coming to Calgary, and he was looking for someone to be like the guy in Calgary to, help put up posters and do whatever.
Right.
And he asked about if I would wrestle on it. And at that time too, so me and Pete Wilson, we've always, been pretty good friends, but it was kind of after my first shoulder surgery, him and I like really, started hanging out more and connected more and that kind of stuff. And I asked Pete, I'm like, what do you think? Like, do you want to do this match? Like, or whatever. Cause same thing. Pete hadn't wrestled for a while either, cause he had a shoulder issue.
Right.
Put it out on one of those Heart Legacy shows or the next, I can't remember, but it had been a while for him too. And he's like, let's do it. So we ended up being, I think, maybe the only Calgary guys on Danny's show in Calgary.
Okay.
For the first one, it was in late August of 2015. And there might've been a couple other guys, but like not that had, I don't want to say that we had name value, but like that had been around,
more experienced guys,
like me and Pete. And we were super like nervous about it because so we had sold a lot of tickets between me and Pete. We brought over 100 people to that show.
Right.
So like that's pretty substantial. There's some shows that don't even get 100 people, right?
Yeah, that's a good draw either way.
So Danny's like, well, if you guys are bringing all these people, like you need to be in the main event because like they're obviously coming to see you guys.
Right.
So now we're in the main event.
Yeah.
And so we have to like
call it coming off the couch to the top of the show.
Man, so we got to look like we belong in the main event, like our gear, our bodies, we have to be able to wrestle like we belong in the main event. It was a lot of pressure on us for that, like from not wrestling for a couple of years. And we were able to.
Truth is, if you look at my run from 2013 to 2018 when I quit, I never wrestled one. I think I wrestled one main event by accident.
Yeah,
but yeah, because I didn't want that pressure. That was Chucky. That was MRB's fault. Well, that's another story for another day.
So we did that, and like it was super cool to be able to be in a tag team with one of my very best friends, be in the main event. All our friends and family are there. We won. It was a really cool feeling.
Yeah.
And so we did that a few more times, and where we still were able to get a lot of people to come, but like these people started to kind of figure out the formula that like it's Dan and Pete in the main event and they win.
Yeah.
So like, if
the fans home happy.
It's like, if we don't catch this one, we can catch the next one. So it's like the amount of people that we were able to bring
for sure
drop off, like little bit by little bit. We still were able to bring quite a few people, but and we were having pretty good matches. Like we did one against Chase Owens, who's in New Japan in the Bullet Club, and this other guy named Sigmund, who does a lot of independent stuff down south, I think. And they were like such good heels for us to wrestle against. Like they, you know what I mean? Like they got it. Once they knew that like the crowd was there to see us, man, like they got it. Like they, they just like whooped our asses, right? Like, and they were all over us, and like the fans hated them. And it's like, that's perfect. Like that's what you're there to do.
That's what you need. Yeah.
And so that was really good. We had another really good one against Scotty Mack and El Phantasmo, he's in the Bullet Club now too in New Japan. Yeah. And same, it was, it's nice when you can just if you are a baby face, then you need to be the baby face. Yeah. And if you're a heel, you need to be the heel.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
exactly. And like all you guys that want to be the cool heel and want to get all your shit in, I'm going to say this as plain as I can. Your job as a heel to make a prick out of yourself.
Yeah.
Period. Right. I know. Do that however you want. You can do that viciously, or you can do it in a comedy style, but you got to make an ass out of yourself, because at the end of the day, the baby face is there to sell t-shirts and tickets. And it's your job to do whatever you have to do to make yourself look stupid or bad or whatever.
Yeah.
But bottom line, to make him look good. That's the whole job. And you have to realize your role.
Yeah. So we were very fortunate to wrestle against some really good heels. And then, so we did we did a few more, but there was one we did. It was me and Pete and Matt Hart against Tony Kazina.
Okay. There's a name I haven't heard for a while.
Yeah. He's a good brother. And Silas Young from Ring of Honor.
Right.
Was on the tour. And this guy from Saskatchewan called the Big Chief, who this is a big dude.
The name's fitting.
Yeah. And like that match, like it was really good. And I think it might have been shortly after Matt's dad Smith passed away.
Right.
And it was a really good match. And, Matt won the match with the sharpshooter, and it was super good feeling like at the end of the match. And I just felt like that should have been our last match, because until that point, we'd been having all these matches, and like they were, it's like, again, if you look back, actually me and Pete, we just watched a whole bunch of them the other day. It was his birthday back in December. Came over, we got a pizza, Greco's Pizza, by the way, best pizza in Calgary.
Shout out to Greco's.
Yeah. And so we watched that, and we were just laughing our asses off. Like, again, some stuff's so good, and there's some stuff like, what was going on here? Like, but,
what were we doing?
But like all the matches, more or less, at the end of the night, the crowd was going home happy. You know what I mean? Like everything was good. And we're like, we kept joking, like, oh, like, man, like we're going to have a dud eventually. Like it's like, and then we did the next one we had after that 6-man with Matt. It was against AJ Sanchez and Tommy Lee Curtis, Shaggy. I
know Sanchez, but I don't know him.
Yeah. So, and again, like a couple of good brothers, like it was, but like, and for some reason too, like, I don't know, me and Pete just messed with the formula, because it was in all of our other matches. It's like, I might have taken a bit of heat, but like Pete took the heat. Right. And I'm like, this match, I'm like, I'll take the heat, Pete, you whatever. And it's like, the funny thing is like this happened like almost instantly. Pete goes to do a moonsault or a lion salt off the ropes, and his shoulder gets popped out right away. Like, you know what I mean? A minute or two into the match.
Oh no.
And so the whole match is just like, you can see it, the whole match, he's there on the corner trying to get his arm back in. And it's like, people told us the match was good because it added that element of like, I guess, realism to it, because they could see something's wrong, but like,
it sucks, but it's good for the business, right?
Yeah. And it's like, but it's just like, I have never watched that one back, because I just like, to me, I was like, this is not, you know what I mean? Like, and I knew after that,
you didn't have the best night.
Yeah. And I'm like, I know after this, like, the chances of having another one probably slim to none, because like, we're not here, you know what I mean? Like, we shouldn't be hurting ourselves doing this, right?
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
And we don't want to risk it again.
Well, and at what cost, right? You're having fun, but at what cost?
Yeah. And so like that ended up being our last one. And like, not to try and by any stretch compare ourselves to The Undertaker, right? But like The Undertaker had that one match that was supposed to be his last one against like Roman Reigns or whatever a few years ago, I think, at WrestleMania. And he didn't like it. And he kept chasing the dragon, trying to get that perfect match, and he wasn't able to until he just that Boneyard match with AJ Styles. Then he's like, okay.
Which a lot of people pissed on. I thought it was excellent.
I thought so too.
I thought it was something completely different. I really enjoyed it.
But I didn't want to do that either, because like, oh, like, okay, let's try and have one more. And like that one will be, like our last one or whatever. But it's like, what if that one's not good? What if I put my shoulder out? And it's just like,
well, and these are conversations I actually have with Chris Steele, to be honest with you. Like I'm done, and I don't want to see him do any more damage to himself, because he's, you think of all the wrestling we've done, and then factor in all the heavy lifting he's done, the wear and tear on your body. And I keep saying to him, like, any injury you have at this point is not going to be worth the money you're making to fix it.
Exactly. So I guess again, like we kind of made this conscious decision, like, we need to stop doing this, right? Yeah. Like, it happened so easily for Pete's shoulder to come out. And then it was shortly after that, I think, I ended up putting my shoulder out playing hockey. Oh, so I ended up having to have a second shoulder surgery done.
No, I'm sorry to hear that, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's, it's all good. It's all repaired. The doctor told me he put the Great Wall of China in my arm to hold it in place. So
right on.
But yeah, so that's, like I said, unfortunately that was our last match. And again, like nothing against AJ and Shaggy. I really wish that match could have been better, and it had the potential to be, but that just wasn't our night. And we, like I said, we joked about it. We know we're going to have a dud. It's going to happen. And it did. And unfortunately that was our our last one.
There's no worse feeling than going in the locker room waiting for the other guys to come back, and then when they come in the door, having to say, "Fuck, I'm sorry, boys."
Yeah.
And we've all done it. We all got a couple, as Bruce would call them, a couple of abortions on our resumes.
Oh yeah. So, but I mean, like it's been, I don't really miss the matches so much. Like sometimes you do, like I've been to a couple shows since then. Like your retirement, I think that was after, or it was right around then anyways, but there is something about like, going out there and having that crowd reaction.
Yeah.
Like there is something about that. But just going and hanging out with the boys and stuff like that is like the part that, I miss.
That's what I miss, man. I don't miss getting the shit kicked out of me. I miss kicking back in the locker room and talking shit with the boys.
Exactly. So, definitely miss that part. And I've been to a few shows or whatever. And actually we went to one of Danny's shows here in Calgary over the summer.
Okay.
And there's a guy on the show named Mentalo. Have you ever met, him?
Yeah, you bet.
He was talking to us because Pete was like, "How are you still wrestling?" Like,
you know what? I thought that probably about 2 months ago. I seen him on a poster. I was like, "Holy shit! I can't believe that guy's still going."
Yeah. So, and he was trying to talk.
He's still in great shape too. Jesus.
Yeah. And he was telling us to start like, on these shows, like he doesn't do too much because like there's a lot of guys around that just aren't as experienced or whatever. And he's like, man, I'd love to have a match against you guys. He's trying to like, work us, or like to get us
trying to lather you up to come back.
And then so afterwards, like Pete's like talking to me. He's like, "You think we should like do it?" I'm like, like I don't know. And then like the next day, Pete's like, "No, that was just last night."
Well, yeah, because you go there and you get the fever, right?
Yeah.
I've been to one show since 2018. Obviously nobody's been around for 2 years, but it's made it easy. And I've been invited to shoot. Actually, I was invited to guest ref Dusty Adonis's match in RCW.
Okay.
And thanked Steven Styles, profusely. But I know that if I go in that ring and ref a match and feel that crowd reaction, I'm gonna be like, I know I could do this again.
Yeah.
And then you're back in.
Yeah.
Right. So I just have to stay away still. And I went down to the Dungeon Boys show at Tool Shed at Halloween there. And it was a great show. It was fun to be back. But I was there with other friends that don't care about wrestling. Yep. So it kind of made it good because they were just going to want to talk. So I kind of watched the wrestling, but also talk. So it wasn't just focused and then, getting myself all excited to get in there,
Yep. Yeah. No, it's sometimes like fun to go like that one in the summer where we were talking to Mentalo, like we sat out in the crowd or whatever and just had some drinks and watched the wrestling with the same thing, some other friends that would always come and support us or whatever.
Right.
And it was fun to just sit and watch, but yeah, I don't know. Like, I think it still need to kind of stay away a little bit. Like whenever, Danny comes to town, like he's a good friend of mine. Like I don't go to all of his shows. Cause like, you know what I mean? Like that, like I said, that fever would just keep building.
It does, man. Yeah.
But it's like maybe like once or twice a year I can go and, say hi to the boys.
Well, actually I talked to Alex Plexus last fall. And we were kind of going back and forth. And I said, are you around wrestling? And he said, no, I'm not really, kind of doing too much, but I'm thinking there's this promotion starting up and I'm thinking I might get involved, and, I'm going to look into it. And I said, don't even look into it. Because the minute you look into it, you're going to wrestle on the next card. And sure as shit, about a month later, he reaches out and says, hey man, can I come on the podcast? I'm going to be on this show and want to promote it. I was just like, I knew as soon as you told me you were going to the show, I knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. On that note, buddy, let's wrap this up. Man, I want to thank you so much for coming on.
For having me.
Yeah, thanks so much. Well, you know what? I'm going to squeeze one last story out of you, actually, and it's a story I've never actually heard you tell, but I know of. You had an opportunity to meet kind of everybody, so many guys, kind of Wayne Gretzky of wrestling. You had an opportunity to meet the Dynamite Kid. Yeah. Wonder if you'll tell us about that a little bit before we go.
Yeah, that was super cool getting to meet and to spend some time with him. He's obviously, much later stages of his life. And he was super cool to me getting to, talk with him and watch matches, like watching some of his matches. And we got to watch, some of mine together. I showed him a match. I think it was against Tyler Breeze from a show we did in Lethbridge. And, I thought it was a pretty good match and there's a lot of action in it and that kind of stuff. And he's watching it. I can see him kind of nodding his head and he's liking it. And he said, where was this one? I said, Lethbridge. He said, you're working too hard for Lethbridge. So
Good sense of humor, anyways. That's hilarious. You're working too hard for
yeah.
that.
I mean, like getting to meet him is obviously super cool because not a lot of people, especially later on, like ever got to do it. So I consider myself very fortunate to do that, and grateful for a guy that never made it in wrestling. And I have no misconceptions about what it is I accomplished.
Yeah.
I got to do some very cool things, meet some very cool people, like heroes, idols, people you've seen on TV, like got to do some cool stuff.
Yeah. Well, and one thing, and I think we'll leave her with this, is I think I can speak for both of us when I say maybe we didn't accomplish everything we had maybe set out to do. But if you shoot for the stars and hit the moon, did you really fall short?
Yeah.
And I think that, geez, I just gave myself goosebumps a little bit. And that's really and truly, I look at our careers in the same way, that, we put everything we had into something. We did it because we were passionate about it and loved it. And, did we make a bunch of money at it? No, but we got wealthy in other ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
On that note, buddy, thank you so much for being on the program. Thanks for sharing that last story. That made me excited. Yeah. Well, you know what, man? I think we're going to have to set up a reunion. I think I'm going to reach out off air, and I'm saying it on air, so I'll try and hold myself accountable. But I'll reach out off air, and I think it's time for, like myself, you, Pete, Brooke, and whoever else is local to kind of get together and, take a trip down memory lane as a group.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, man. Thanks so much, Dan. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks so much, Jordy. Have a good day.
Thanks, buddy. You too.
Duke, you suck.
You shut your mouth.